A month after breaking up with Augustine, I was diagnosed with severe depression. On the same day, I saw him pinning a girl against the wall, demanding, "You said that if I dumped her, you'd be my girlfriend." The girl looked shy, but we're good buddies. That day, because of her stubbornness, Augustine punished her severely. As for me, I was out of my mind, and on the way home, I got into a car accident and died on the spot. When I opened my eyes again, I was back on the day Augustine confessed to me. That girl sat among a group of men, a provocative look on her face. "Augustine, hurry up and confess. Don't you like good girls?" Augustine gave her a meaningful glance and, out of spite, pulled me into his arms. "How about we be together?" I smiled sweetly. "Sure, but if you agree to be my boyfriend, no backing out." Chapter 1. In the lively KTV, a group of people were teasing us. We always thought August hated girls. Who knew he had a secret crush on Freya? Looks like even a stone heart can blossom. In the dark, Augustine sat across from me, his expression unreadable. "Calm down. Don't scare Freya." I was Freya, the girl Augustine was confessing to tonight. His friends all said that Augustine had secretly liked me for many years. If I got together with him, I'd definitely be the happiest girl. Coincidentally, he was someone I had liked for a long time too. Under normal circumstances, I would have been so excited that I'd immediately say yes. But right now, I was only quietly watching the girl across from me, Vanessa, Augustine's good friend. She was surrounded by a group of boys, her stubborn gaze full of provocation. "Augustine, don't you like good girls like Freya the most? Hurry up and confess, or you'll be stuck with me, the tomboy." Augustine gritted his teeth and sneered. "Who wants to settle for you? I've got someone who actually wants me." With that, he pulled me into his arms, out of spite and frustration. He said the same words as in my previous life. "Freya, how about we be together? I'll treat you really well." Treat me well? Like in the future, when you'd constantly cheat on me with Vanessa, give me the cold shoulder, and drive me into severe depression? The things they did to me in my past life flashed before my eyes like a reel of memories. I forced down the sarcasm that tugged at my lips and smiled sweetly as I said, "Sure, but if you agree to be my boyfriend, no backing out." Chapter 2. The party ended late at night. It was pouring rain outside. Everyone decided to stay at the hotel. Unlike in my previous life, this time I insisted on staying with Augustine. Vanessa smirked, a bit smug. "Augustine moves around a lot when he sleeps. It drove me crazy. Good thing you're taking over." I nodded politely. "Thanks for the warning." Vanessa was taken aback, pursed her lips, and fell silent out of frustration. Augustine pulled me close, smiling. "Freya, ignore her. There's a big difference between a girlfriend and a buddy." Vanessa shrugged it off and left nonchalantly. As soon as Augustine returned to the room, he headed straight to the bathroom for a shower. I stared at the rain outside, my mind drifting back to the day I died in my previous life. It was also a rainy day. By then, after the breakup, my depression had already gotten severe. I was in the hospital when I suddenly received an anonymous private message. It was a screenshot of a group chat between Augustine and his buddies. In the chat, Vanessa openly at Augustine, "Let's have a bet. See who can get into a relationship first. The loser has to do whatever the winner says." Augustine's friends were having a blast watching the drama unfold. "I'm betting on Vanessa to win. No way August is going to lose." Not even a month later, Augustine posted a picture of me asleep, leaning on his shoulder. He had Ed Vanessa, "I won." "Vanessa, come out." Vanessa coolly replied, "What do you want?" "You lost. My condition is, be my girlfriend." Holding my phone, I was already in tears. The emotional abuse and the mysterious breakup suddenly made sense. Turns out, I was just a wager in their twisted little game. That day, I rushed back to campus, desperate to confront them, but in front of the girls' dorm, I saw Augustine pinning Vanessa against the wall, gritting his teeth as he said, "You promised me that if I dumped Freya, you'd be my girlfriend." Vanessa looked embarrassed. "We're just buddies." Who would like you?" Because of her stubbornness, Augustine punished her severely. That day, on my way back, I was so distracted that I got into a car accident, and Augustine and Vanessa ended up together, with the blessing of all his buddies. Chapter 3. The loud noise from next door snapped me out of my thoughts. Vanessa's boisterous laughter came through the wall. We agreed. The loser takes off their clothes. Vanessa, you lost. Time to strip. Fine. Fine. Who's afraid of who? Vanessa was getting rowdy with her brothers, probably playing some inappropriate game again. Suddenly, I was pushed down onto the bed. A husky voice whispered next to my ear. Freya, I want to kiss you. Augustine's wet hair was still dripping, and the veins on the back of his hands bulged with tension. I calmly looked into his eyes, which were clouded with jealousy, and smiled. Aren't you being a little too eager, Senior? I knew Augustine was about to lose it, because he couldn't have the one he wanted. He was here tormenting the innocent me. Who taught him such a twisted way of thinking? So I decided to fan the flames a little more. The crisp sound of a camera shutter woke Augustine up. He saw me holding my phone. His gaze darkened. Freya, what are you doing? On the screen was a photo of Augustine pinning me to the bed. I opened the chat with Vanessa and quickly sent it over. The laughter from next door suddenly halted. Augustine's body stiffened, and he barked. Freya, are you crazy? I flinched, as if I were scared, my eyes welling up with tears. I'm sorry. I sent it to the wrong person. I just wanted to show off to my best friend. I didn't mean to send it to Vanessa. From next door, I heard a man shout, Hey, Vanessa, where are you going? You haven't stripped yet. Who made you mad? Before Vanessa could barge in, I quickly scrambled off the bed, my voice trembling as I spoke through tears. Senior, I'm not feeling well. I'm going out for some fresh air. With that, I dashed out the door, looking every bit like a timid coward who'd made a huge mistake. Exactly the image Augustine had of me. Meanwhile, my phone accidentally slipped under the bed and started recording. Chapter 4. In my previous life, Vanessa and Augustine were still just bickering at this point. They hadn't gotten together yet, but I didn't want to wait. Rather than waiting for things to happen, why not give them a little push? I could also collect some evidence along the way. I was running too fast, and as I turned the corner in the hallway, I collided hard with someone. A large hand pressed against my forehead and gently pushed me back. I looked up into a pair of deep black eyes. Why are you running like that? The cold voice, combined with his world-weary face, instantly calmed me down. It was Calvin, Augustine's roommate. He was also the only one among Augustine's group of friends in my previous life who said I had bad taste. At this moment, he was silently staring at the crocodile tears on my cheeks. Behind me, I heard Vanessa knocking on Augustine's door. Augustine, the materials for the last competition were wrong. I need to discuss it with you. At the corner, I pushed Calvin against the wall, covering his mouth tightly. His hot breath landed on my palm, making it burn. Calvin raised an eyebrow, seemingly waiting for an explanation, until Augustine opened the door and pulled Vanessa inside. The door slammed shut. Only then did I bite my lip and say with a pitiful expression, Senior, Augustine and I had a fight. Calvin leaned lazily against the window frame. His refined silhouette framed by the rain outside made it look like a perfect painting. Really? Doesn't seem like it. My expression froze, and I silently stared at him. Vanessa's voice floated out of the room, clear as day. Augustine, you jerk. We're buddies. What are you doing? Augustine sneered. Losing means you have to strip? Vanessa, you sure know how to play. None of your business. I want you as a buddy. You're a buddy. I want you as a girl. You can't refuse even if you don't want to. Vanessa, you really need to fix that stubborn streak. Vanessa's defiant tone gradually turned into a sob. In the end, it even sounded like she was pleading coquettishly. What if Freya comes back? So what? It's more thrilling if she's right outside. Calvin lowered his eyes and let out a scoff. You actually like this garbage? The rain outside continued to patter down. I slowly clenched my cold fingertips, smiling faintly as I replied. I used to like him a lot, but not anymore. Even though I was calm, the tremble in my voice gave away my emotions. In my past life, I followed my mom's advice, got into a good university, And if things had gone well, I would have had a serious relationship with someone I liked, found a stable job after graduation, and lived a peaceful and happy life. But because of this twisted love between those two, my life was ruined. It's disgusting. Suddenly, a shadow fell in front of me. At some point, Calvin had moved to stand in front of me. He asked, "Do you want to ruin them both?" It was such a casual question, but at that moment, it sounded like a tempting whisper. "If you do, don't give up on the SciTech competition." My heart sank. The SciTech competition, a competition that could change the trajectory of my life. In my past life, both Vanessa and I made it to the finals. But because of Augustine's sweet words, I voluntarily withdrew. That gave Vanessa the chance to take first place and land a high-paying job with $1 million salary. In the future, she would even casually say a few words that would get me fired from the job I had worked so hard to find, cutting off my financial support. That was my secret. How did Calvin know? I didn't ask, and Calvin didn't say much either. We both silently held onto our own secrets. That night passed without a word. Chapter 5. The next morning, Augustine found me in the hallway. "Freya, where did you go last night? I knocked on your door, but you didn't answer. So I got my own room." Augustine pressed his lips together. "I shouldn't have yelled at you last night. I'm sorry. As compensation, let me take you on a vacation, okay?" I lowered my head, remaining silent. A few minutes ago, Vanessa and Augustine had just had a fight because she wouldn't admit her feelings. But even so, when Augustine saw the finalist list, he still decided to push me to give up the competition, to give Vanessa a chance. Vanessa stepped out of the room next door. The wind lifted her hair. The hickey on her neck was instantly exposed. Everyone started teasing. "Vanessa, what's going on?" She quickly covered her neck, her eyes flashing with embarrassment and frustration. "Nothing." Her attitude only made Augustine angrier. He shot her a cold look. His face darkened, and he affectionately touched my ear. "Freya, come inside. I need to talk to you." I went back to the room and retrieved my suitcase and phone. When I turned around, I saw Augustine close the door. He walked over and gently hugged me. "Freya, you made it to the finals of the SciTech competition." I widened my eyes in fake surprise. "Really?" "Yeah, but with your abilities, even if you win first place, you won't be able to get into RH Corporation and sign that high-paying contract. Because you're too soft, you wouldn't survive in such a high-pressure work environment." I watched Augustine's performance intently, suppressing the sarcasm tugging at my lips. In my previous life, this was how he did it. He chipped away at my confidence bit by bit, convincing me to drop out. "Freya, I've seen people like you before. You wouldn't even make it through the internship period." Augustine's voice was sincere, "But luckily, you've got me. After graduation, come work at my company. No one would dare bully you. Just quit the competition." I bit my lip, hesitating for a long time, before saying, "Is your company reliable? I'm from a single-parent family. I don't feel very secure." Augustine hugged me tightly. "Don't worry, Freya. On the day of the competition, I'll propose to you. I'll give you the security you want." I leaned against his shoulder, smiling, but my eyes were cold. I had once said this to Augustine seriously, about how I was a kid from a single-parent family with little security. Back then, I had cautiously but joyfully envisioned our future together, and gave Augustine the chance to deceive me. Now that I have a second chance, he'll pay for those words. Chapter 6. As the competition drew closer, I spent more and more time in front of my computer. My roommate came back and asked, "Freya, you haven't eaten all day. Are you really okay?" I stared at the screen and casually responded, "I'll eat later." Right then, my phone lit up with a message from Augustine. "There's a concert tonight. I want you to come with me." Over the past week, Augustine kept finding excuses to take me out, wasting my time. I had managed to deal with it before, but today my stomach hurt, so I gave him a quick excuse and turned him down. My roommate said, "Augustine really cares about you. The whole school knows by now." I exited the chat with Augustine and didn't reply. Just then, Calvin called me. "Freya, come downstairs and eat." He had been away for a few days, competing at another school, and I hadn't expected him to come back so soon. I said, "My stomach hurts. I don't want to go. You can either come out yourself, or I'll come into your dorm and carry you out." A few minutes later, I was bundled up in my coat, pushing open the door to the dorm building. I felt like I was floating as I walked. "I told you I didn't want to eat." Calvin's face was dark as he reached out to touch my forehead. "You're sick. I go away for a conference, and you stop eating?" When Calvin was around, he'd always drag me to eat 3 meals a day. Even if Augustine called me out, I'd still come back to find Calvin forcing me to eat a late-night snack. I wanted to say something else, but suddenly I collapsed against Calvin. I lost consciousness. I fell into a dark, murky void. Voices arguing fiercely came from afar, muffled as if they were coming through cotton, flooding my ears. It felt like another lifetime. "Mr. Ma, Freya is dead." "What happened?" "Car accident." "Calvin, calm down." I can't calm the down. Damn those 2 pieces of trash. "Do you like Freya? Why else would you avenge her if you didn't? You don't have to like someone to want justice. I just can't stand seeing good people get hurt." "Freya, I think I like you." "Freya, I'm coming to find you." Chapter 7. I woke up suddenly, in the quiet hospital room. The ticking of machines occasionally broke the silence. Calvin was sitting on the couch, his head down, seemingly asleep. I carefully observed Calvin. I wasn't sure if the voices I'd heard earlier were just hallucinations, or if they were things that really happened after I died in my past life. Calvin looked exhausted. There were faint dark circles under his eyes, probably because of my condition. Noticing my gaze, his eyelashes trembled slightly as he slowly opened his eyes. Our eyes met. His voice was hoarse and sleepy. "Freya, why are you staring at me?" I blurted out. "You like me." Calvin froze, his eyes instantly sharpening with clarity. He chuckled with a familiar teasing tone. "For someone so young, you sure are full of yourself." I was left speechless and pouted, not wanting to continue. The doctor said I had developed acute gastritis due to stress and would need to stay in the hospital for a few days. I told Calvin I wanted ice cream. Calvin said, "Freya, do I look like your dad? I worry about you so much." I'm going gray. But in the end, he still bought a box of strawberry ice cream. He gave me 1 small spoonful and ate the rest himself. Lately, since he'd been around me so often, he'd picked up a new habit. When he got busy, Calvin would casually toss me his phone and let me check his messages. Now, his phone rang again. I unlocked it without hesitation and saw that Augustine had posted something in their dorm chat. "What's he saying?" Calvin asked absent-mindedly. I reluctantly read it out loud. "August, are you really going to use your looks? Are you seriously seducing Freya just to help Vanessa win first place? Isn't Vanessa still giving you the cold shoulder?" Augustine's tone was stiff. "Vanessa is stubborn as a mule. What else can I do? I'm stuck with her. I accept it." After I finished reading, silence filled the hospital room. Was Augustine trying to make it clear to me that I was an idiot? The dim light from the computer illuminated Calvin's chiseled features. He looked really good. I don't know what's going on. Ever since I woke up, whenever I looked at Calvin, my heart would start racing. I suddenly spoke softly. "Senior, it hurts." Calvin lifted his eyes, his dark gaze holding an unreadable emotion. "What hurts?" "My stomach." His expression tightened as he closed his computer and walked over. As he approached, he seemed to understand the look in my eyes. I grinned. "And you say you don't like me?" Calvin hesitated for a moment. Then a dangerous smile spread across his face. "Serves you right. Maybe it's better if you suffer. You even got me medicine." "Were you worried about me?" Calvin's voice was cold. "Shut up, or I'll poison you next." Chapter 8. During my time in the hospital, whenever Augustine came to visit, Calvin would briefly disappear. On the day I was discharged, Augustine dragged Calvin over to help. Augustine had been in a great mood lately. Even when he listened to me talk, there was a hint of a smile in his eyes. I guess everything had been going too smoothly for him. After all, Vanessa had rejoined their little group, sharing the same cup of milk tea with him, even calling him daddy as a joke. "Freya, I'm taking you to stay somewhere else tonight. Tomorrow was the day of the competition. Augustine had everything carefully planned. Even though I had already promised him in person that I would withdraw from the competition, he still wasn't reassured. He was worried I might go back to school and cause trouble for Vanessa. I asked in a low voice, "Isn't it bad to leave campus without permission in front of the student council president?" Calvin gave me a look that said, "You're finally thinking clearly." Augustine chuckled. "Funny you mention that. The student council president is actually my roommate. You're only able to stay in the hospital because of him. We're really close." Calvin muttered, "That's not going to work." "Why not?" "Professor Sue just called. He told me to take Freya back to school." Augustine grew anxious. Why is Professor Sue suddenly concerned about Freya? The one who had secretly reported the situation smiled slightly. "I don't know. Maybe he's worried something might happen to her since she's been sick. He said they're doing a special check in her dorm tonight. Freya has to be there." Augustine reluctantly took me back to school. Along the way, he kept reminding me that he planned to propose to me tomorrow. I was so moved that my eyes filled with tears. "Augustine, you're the first person who's ever been so good to me. I'll be waiting for you tomorrow." On the day I went to submit my competition materials, I ran into Vanessa at the door. "Freya, aren't you withdrawing from the competition?" Vanessa looked a bit surprised and even a little panicked. I calmly handed my materials to the teacher. "Why would I give up such a good opportunity? But your personality isn't suited for this." "If I'm not suited for it, is the personality of someone who likes to call others daddy more suited for it?" I didn't hold back, firing back at her without hesitation. "You should worry about yourself." I had already used the market trends for the next 3 years to craft the best business proposal. Vanessa was completely rattled. She grabbed my arm, forcing a smile. "Augustine's going to propose to you today. Aren't you going?" "It's Augustine. After all." I chuckled softly. "It's such a rare opportunity. Why don't you go?" Vanessa's face instantly turned pale. Chapter 9. On my way to the competition, Augustine's words kept replaying in my mind. "She's just obsessed with love. Being Vanessa's stepping stone is her privilege. When Vanessa and I get married, Freya will be sitting at the head table." If Vanessa had figured things out sooner, Freya wouldn't have even been in the picture. I couldn't help but smile. My eyes felt a little warm. In my previous life, I never made it to the competition, but today, I had arrived. No one knew how much I had suffered and how many wrong turns I had taken to get to this position. The phone in my bag started buzzing wildly. I guessed it was Augustine calling. In both my past and present lives, Augustine had never doubted his own charm. He was so confident that I would give up the competition just to witness his ridiculous proposal. I watched with satisfaction as Vanessa stood there, on the verge of tears. "Freya, you're up first." The teacher called. Just before I went on stage, Augustine rushed in and grabbed me. With a stern tone, he demanded, "Freya, didn't you promise me you'd quit the competition?" I looked at him innocently, the smile on my lips impossible to suppress. "Senior, can you confess your love to me here? If you say you love me, I'll drop everything and leave with you." The commotion quickly attracted a crowd of onlookers. People were pointing and whispering, "Isn't that Freya, the one RH Corporation has their eye on? I heard they're going to sign her right after the competition. She's way more impressive than Vanessa." Augustine's eyes flickered, and the next moment, he wrapped an arm around my waist, speaking quickly. "Freya, if you come with me, I can give you everything. Will you?" The entire room fell into a dead silence. Vanessa looked at me like I was her last lifeline. I smiled slowly and clearly responded, "Of course not. You idiot." As Augustine's expression darkened, I taunted him, my voice unhurried. "It was all just a game. Did you really think I was just some love-struck fool? How naive." At the same time, a wave of gasps erupted from the crowd. Augustine and Vanessa were involved? Wow. Best friends during the day, and secret lovers by night. That's nasty. Vanessa's disgusting. The recording I had made that night finally came into play. A post on the school forum had gained traction and made its way to the homepage. Vanessa's coy, flirty voice was enough to make a lot of people cringe. "Isn't she always acting like one of the guys? She's always so tomboyish, but sounds like that? Gross." Vanessa's face turned pale, tears rolling down her cheeks. Realizing he'd been played, Augustine's eyes grew cold. Freya, are you sure you want to do this to her? I raised an eyebrow, waiting for his next move. Augustine sneered and said, "Teachers, I'd like to report Freya for plagiarism." The crowd immediately erupted in murmurs. Augustine pulled out a printed draft of a thesis. Freya, care to explain why your project's theme is identical to Calvin's thesis? I froze when I saw Calvin's thesis topic. In my past life, Calvin hadn't chosen this topic. He knew the trends for the next 3 years just as well as I did. Augustine continued, "Calvin's only seen you a few times, and yet you stole his work. Freya, do you really deserve my sincerity?" The principal frowned. Freya, can you explain this? The topic, in the eyes of people today, was a complete niche. I steadied myself and explained, "Principal, the fact that we have the same topic doesn't mean I plagiarized. Stop making excuses. Without Calvin, could you have come up with this?" The principal, growing impatient, waved his hand. "Let's not delay the competition. Freya is disqualified." With that simple command, the staff removed my materials and threw them in the trash. I let out a laugh. It was like reliving my past life. Being accused of plagiarism by Vanessa and losing my job. They had the numbers and the power. A few words from them, and the truth was turned upside down. The teachers and students in the audience started whispering, "I thought she was so amazing, but now I don't know. Exposing your boyfriend with a recording? She can't be a good person." Suddenly, Vanessa gasped, "Aw. Freya, you've been seeing someone else, haven't you?" Vanessa, thrilled, pulled out her phone and showed a picture to the students nearby. In the dim light of night, a tall figure leaned over my bed, kissing the sleeping me. The picture only showed my profile. Augustine's expression faltered, his face contorted with sarcasm and disgust. "Unbelievable. You accuse me of cheating. But maybe you should take a look at yourself. There are so many men at school. Are they all your boyfriends? Freya, you've broken so many school rules. You should be expelled. If you kneel and beg for mercy now, I might still take care of you." I stared at Augustine's vile face, ready to pull out my phone and call the police. But before I could, someone kicked him off the stage with a loud thud. Calvin had appeared behind him, coldly laughing. "Say it again. Who do you think you're going to take care of? I've been feeding her well. Do you really think you're qualified to take care of her? You broke piece of trash?" Calvin's sudden appearance sent the room into stunned silence. The principal was speechless. "Calvin, weren't you supposed to be at another school?" Calvin glanced at Augustine with disdain. "I heard someone was shamelessly bullying a student. As student council president, I had to come back and make things right." Augustine frowned. "Calvin, she plagiarized your thesis. I'm standing up for you. And you're kicking me?" Calvin's face was cold. "Who said she plagiarized? I copied her. Is that not allowed?" Augustine froze, finally realizing something was off. "Bro, did she brainwash you?" He was furious, waving the photo around. "She's morally corrupt. Men are all over her." Calvin lazily glanced at the photo. "That's me, you idiot." Everyone was stunned. Calvin took the picture, smiling coldly. "It's hard enough being a little perverted, and now you've gone and caught me in the act. Do you have a death wish?" Augustine's face turned pale as though all the blood had drained from his body. "No, you wouldn't." The principal chimed in nervously. "Calvin, you're a good student. Don't let emotions cloud your judgment." Calvin raised his eyebrows lazily, his voice cold. "Sorry, principal, but this good student here just likes sneaking around and acting shady. Even knowing Freya has a boyfriend, I went ahead and pursued her. Sorry to disappoint you." Chapter 10. With just a few words, Calvin had set the scene ablaze. Many of the onlookers were already logging onto the school forum. "Come check it out! This is getting so dramatic. Is this a love quadrangle? No, it's Augustine and Vanessa turning the tables. Wait, did Augustine just make up false accusations about Freya's love life?" I ignored the chaos around me and addressed the principal directly. "I want to report this to the police." The principal's face went pale. "Freya, don't make a scene. Augustine just said I have a chaotic private life. He's slandering me. And everyone here heard it. Augustine, now furious, yelled, "You know what you did." "What did I do?" I asked, my eyes starting to well up under Augustine's intense stare. A few moments later, the principal and the teachers crowded around me, clearly nervous. "Calm down, Freya. Don't blow this out of proportion, please. Put down the phone." I looked like I had been wronged beyond belief. Augustine is so sure that my private life is messy, which means he must have seen me with someone, since I have no memory of this. I have reason to suspect that someone violated me while I was unconscious. I want to report this to the police. Augustine is my witness. Augustine's face turned incredibly dark. Vanessa was too scared to speak. It was at that moment that everyone realized the gravity of the situation. Calvin, unfazed by the chaos, casually added, "Yeah, this sounds serious. You should call the police." The situation ended with Augustine being suspended from school. A few days later, the competition went off without a hitch. I won first place, defeating Vanessa with an overwhelming advantage. RH Corporation immediately extended an olive branch to me. "Ms. Lin, you're a very creative individual. Would you consider joining our company after graduation?" If this had been right after my rebirth, I would have signed the contract without hesitation. But now, I declined. "May I ask why?" they asked. I smiled and replied, "Someone else offered me a more tempting deal." That person was Augustine's older brother, Bruno. He traded Augustine's future for my insights into the market trends of the next 3 years. I had no reason to refuse. After the competition, Calvin and I walked side by side along the tree-lined path. The warm spring breeze swept across our shoulders. I thought about the photo. After a moment of hesitation, I finally asked, "Why did you kiss me in secret?" Calvin's eyes were hidden in the dappled light and shadow, making it hard to read his expression. "You already know the answer, don't you?" "Because I like you. I have since the last lifetime." Chapter 11. The first time Calvin saw Freya was on a sweltering summer afternoon. "Calvin, did you know Augustine has a girlfriend now?" Calvin had just finished attending an academic lecture when he saw Augustine's girlfriend. She was wearing a faded old dress, sitting quietly in a corner of the KTV. She looked out of place, awkward under the teasing of everyone around her. A poor student. Freya. Calvin knew her. Every month, the financial aid for poor students had to be approved by him. He'd seen Freya's face countless times. Freya wanted to say hello to him. Calvin replied indifferently, "She looks obedient enough, but her taste in men isn't great." He hoped Freya understood the implication. Augustine wasn't a good person. If someone asked Calvin what kind of person he hated most, he would say he despised people obsessed with romance. Freya's existence was practically dancing on his landmine. He couldn't understand how someone would skip meals and save up money just to spend it on a man. Augustine didn't even need the money. When Calvin said this, one of the students who came to collect financial aid said, "Freya isn't just a lovesick fool. She's just a kind person who's good to everyone. If you were in trouble, she'd help you too." Calvin thought. Then that makes her a martyr. Because of a casual joke Augustine made, Freya seriously started saving money for him. She had no idea that a single pair of Augustine's shoes cost tens of thousands. She didn't know that the boys she liked mocked her behind her back, calling her an ignorant fool. Calvin was furious. So when Freya came looking for Augustine, he rudely asked her, "Hey, I can't afford to eat. Can you lend me some money?" Freya was so frightened she shrank back and handed him a banknote. She thought he was robbing her. From that day on, Calvin started using his own money to send extra financial aid to Freya. In the name of the school, Freya's living allowance increased. But she didn't gain any weight. She was still as skinny as a kite that could be blown away at any moment. In the second semester of their third year, Calvin was preparing to go abroad as an exchange student. Before he left, Calvin specifically asked someone to check on Freya. The person said, "She's doing fine. No major issues. Her relationship with Augustine is stable, but she donated all that extra living allowance." Calvin asked, "Donated to where?" "To poor girls in remote areas, and to some female students who couldn't afford tuition." Calvin couldn't even get mad anymore. "You had to admit, Some people in this world just wanted to shine on everyone else. Even when they could barely take care of themselves, they still wanted to light the way for others. Before Calvin left, he instructed someone to transfer money to her account regularly, and then he was gone for 2 years. Life abroad was chaotic, and he barely had time for himself. Occasionally, he made a phone call back. He heard that Freya had passed her graduation defense. She had signed a decent job offer, and she hadn't broken up with Augustine. It sounded like Freya's life was peaceful, so much so that any interruption from him would have been unwelcome. When Calvin finally returned, it was to take over the family business as the heir. At the welcome back banquet, Augustine and Vanessa were now a couple. After a brief moment of surprise, Calvin suddenly thought of someone. He asked, almost without realizing it, "Where's Freya?" Vanessa pouted disdainfully. "Oh, her mental state's a bit off. She's in the hospital." "What do you mean, off?" "Depression." Vanessa laughed, like it was some kind of joke. She doubled over, laughing so hard she almost couldn't breathe. She got depressed over a relationship. Kids from poor families just can't handle things. Seeing his expression darken, the welcome banquet didn't last long. The moment Calvin stepped outside, he made a phone call. "What's wrong with Freya? Why didn't anyone tell me she had depression?" The voice on the other end was bitter. "Mr. Ma, Freya was dumped by Augustine. I couldn't exactly force Augustine to take her back. Besides, you didn't ask me to report this kind of thing." "Oh, and she was fired from her job last month." Calvin, uncharacteristically, lost his temper and shouted into the phone. "Then find her another job. She's hospitalized. She can't work." Calvin angrily hung up the phone. He cursed at the empty air. Serves her right. If Freya had half a brain, she would have kicked Augustine to the curb. How could she let herself be treated like this? Calvin felt stifled. He couldn't understand why Freya would get depressed. He consulted a psychologist. The psychologist said, "Mr. Ma, are you familiar with the concept of boiling a frog in warm water? Over the course of 3 years, someone could slowly deceive a healthy person into boiling water. Even if she wanted to escape now, it's already too late. Her depression isn't just psychological. Her body is sick as well." In other words, Augustine and Vanessa must have subjected Freya to long-term emotional abuse. Calvin had no idea. All he could do was find the best doctors for Freya. He was afraid his presence would remind Freya of Augustine, so he didn't even dare to visit her. The fact that Vanessa and Augustine were together caused quite a stir. Every now and then, Calvin would get invited to gatherings, and without fail, Augustine and Vanessa would flaunt their relationship at those gatherings. Augustine would boast that he had secretly liked Vanessa for 4 years. 4 years. Their entire time in college. That was when Calvin finally realized Freya had been played. One day, Calvin, as a shareholder, went to a meeting at Bruno's company. At the entrance, he kicked Augustine to the ground. Bruno raised an eyebrow. "Mr. Ma, isn't it a bit much to kick my brother in front of me?" Unfazed, Calvin kicked Augustine 2 more times. That night, he received the news that Freya had died in a car accident. Her body was emaciated. On Freya's phone were several screenshots. They were chat logs from a group of over 300 people, with Augustine and Vanessa's conversations included. The screenshots had been sent to Freya by Vanessa using a fake account. She just wanted to push Freya further, to make sure she fell into the abyss sooner. When Calvin saw the messages for the first time, he simply muttered 2 words, "Disgusting scum." Calvin then began his revenge against Vanessa and Augustine. His methods were extreme, to the point where they made no sense to anyone. At first, Bruno tried to shield Augustine, but eventually, he gave up entirely. One night, when Calvin was drunk, Bruno asked, "Do you like Freya? Why else would you go to such lengths for her?" Calvin replied, "You don't have to like someone to seek justice. I just can't stand seeing good people get hurt." Any decent man would feel the same. Later, Vanessa was taken to court for plagiarizing someone else's work from years ago, and she lost her job. As for Augustine, every time Calvin saw him, he beat him up. With Bruno on Calvin's side, they made Augustine's life a living hell. Before long, Augustine ended up losing a leg. Bruno asked, "Is this enough?" Or do you want them dead? Calvin replied. It's enough. Calvin liked to think of himself as a man of justice. Until one night, he stumbled upon an old group chat. At the very bottom was a long since disbanded group. In that moment, a wave of bitterness washed over him. It crashed down, pulling him into an endless abyss. All the bets and secrets that should have been obvious to him had been laid out in plain sight. But he had forgotten he was in that group too. Freya must have hated him, right? Calvin spent the night smoking, staring into the darkness. The next morning, he dragged Augustine into his car. They sped down a mountain road in Calvin's high-performance sports car. Augustine, terrified, was pleading for his life. Calvin, on the other hand, was in a surprisingly good mood. Augustine, do you think if I drove us off this cliff, I'd finally see the person I want to see? Shaking uncontrollably, Augustine begged, Mr. Ma. I'm sorry, I was wrong. I shouldn't have toyed with Freya. I'm a terrible person. I don't want to die. Please spare me. His words only fueled the anger deep within Calvin. He pressed down on the gas, roaring up the mountain. The deafening roar shattered the clouds in the sky. Just before they reached the cliff, Augustine grabbed the steering wheel in a panic. The car swerved wildly like a drunk beast, veering towards the edge. Calvin was thrown from the car, suffering multiple fractures. Augustine, still inside the vehicle, went over the cliff with a massive explosion. Not even his ashes remained. Calvin, dazed and in pain, still didn't see Freya. He figured all those stories about beautiful afterlives were nonsense. There was no heaven, no hell. When a person dies, they're just gone. As Calvin lay on the hospital's emergency bed, staring up at the fluorescent lights that seemed to be rushing past him, he could hear the nurses chattering as they reported his blood pressure and heart rate. Through the reflection in the nurse's watch, which hung around her neck, he saw a familiar sticker. It was the same sticker Freya had loved so much. In a daze, he lifted his hand and grabbed the nurse's arm, asking, Do you know Freya? The nurse smiled and replied, She was my sponsor. The words save lives and heal the wounded on her badge blurred in his vision, making his head spin. The nurse's gaze was as clear as Freya's once was. Lie still. Let me save you. Chapter 12. Hey, Calvin. I waved my hand in front of his face. What are you thinking about? Ever since he had randomly confessed his feelings to me, Calvin seemed lost in thought. He snapped back to reality, staring at me for a moment before saying, I'm thinking about whether or not you'll hit me if I kiss you right now. I stared at him in silence. Calvin swallowed, then suddenly grabbed my wrists and pinned them behind my back as he leaned down to kiss me. His kisses were rough and forceful. It hurt enough to make me frown. He wouldn't let me escape. The spring breeze swirled around us, playful and gentle, just like the way my heart was leaping. It wasn't until much later that Calvin reluctantly let me go. Freya, want to go grab something to eat? I suddenly had a strange feeling. It seemed like Calvin had an unusual obsession with having meals together. The thing he said to me the most was, make sure to eat well. Over the next few days, I became a popular figure on campus. Everywhere I went, people greeted me. I even got selected as one of the school's outstanding individuals of the year and was invited to give an interview. Freya, Vanessa's been spreading rumors that you only won the competition because Calvin helped you. My roommate pushed a forum post in front of me, exposing the truth behind Freya's victory. Thanks to Vanessa's rumors, a lot of people believed it. Do you even know what it means to create an image? There's no way an ordinary person could take first place. Let me tell you, if any of the girls here can get Calvin, they'll get first place. It's not like us guys. We have no one to rely on. I'm still Team Vanessa. My roommate was furious. You didn't even know Calvin when you finished your first draft. These people just can't stand seeing a woman succeed. I ran into Vanessa in the school building. As usual, she was as careless as ever. Freya, you'll lose eventually if you keep getting involved with boys romantically. You should learn from me. Treat boys like brothers. When you enter the real world, you'll have more opportunities. So, I guess I'm not really losing. Ha ha. I looked at her calmly. Sure, keep it up, senior. Then, I turned around and reported the whole matter to the school. Because of her slander, Vanessa was summoned for a meeting with the school authorities. After all, the SciTech competition was one of the city's most prestigious projects. Her reckless remarks online had damaged the school's reputation. Vanessa tried to get help from the boys. "Didn't you guys say you supported me? Freya must have used some underhanded methods. If we work together to resist her, we can definitely succeed." The boys all avoided eye contact. Vanessa lost her temper. "You bunch of ungrateful traitors." One of the guys scoffed impatiently. "Did you really think you were one of the boys? We didn't pass up a free opportunity when it came knocking. Besides, your waist really is pretty soft." Vanessa froze on the spot. Her eyes immediately reddened. Vanessa stubbornly said, "Teacher, Freya is Calvin's girlfriend. Is it fair for him to help her?" The teacher explained helplessly. "Calvin didn't vote for Freya. Neither his dorm mates nor anyone in the student council participated in the voting. The results were entirely fair." Vanessa's name became notorious on the school forum. People who had suffered under her bullying began to mock her. "Vanessa, your brothers didn't help you out." "Huh? Boys aren't stupid. She's good-looking and a suck-up. Why not take advantage when we can, now that her reputation is ruined? Who would want to be friends with her?" Chapter 13. I signed an agreement with Augustine's older brother, Bruno. Bruno would support me financially until I finished graduate school, and he promised to ensure I got a job at his company. That's when I realized he had wanted to take Augustine down for a long time. The new semester started. Vanessa wasn't doing too well. Within a week, she had gotten into 5 arguments with her roommates and classmates, and one of them ended with blood being drawn. Bruno, taking my advice, had let Augustine return, while Vanessa was called away by a teacher for a meeting. Augustine sat across from me. "Freya, I'm sorry. My brother told me to treat you well." It was clear he had been disciplined by Bruno and had learned to behave. I smiled slightly. "It's all in the past. I asked you to come here today because there are some tasks I need help with. There are a few things I don't quite understand, and I'd like you to guide me." With the new school year, Augustine's position as vice president of the student council had been passed on to me. Augustine's eyes brightened. "Sure, Freya. Anything you need." Just then, Vanessa walked by and suddenly clung to the doorframe. "Augustine, what are you doing here? Are you getting back together with her?" Her sharp voice echoed through the room. I replied, "Sorry, Senior. We're just discussing work. You've misunderstood." Vanessa's gaze turned cold and hostile. "Get lost. Did I ask you?" I stepped back and looked at Augustine helplessly. "Senior, it seems we can't continue today. I'll visit you at your place another time." Augustine nodded and brushed past Vanessa. Vanessa, too preoccupied with chasing after Augustine, couldn't be bothered to insult me further. I turned back to my desk, where Augustine's chat window was pinned to the top. For the next week, I would be chatting with him frequently. Suddenly, I was lifted off my feet and placed on the desk. Calvin, with a cold expression, leaned down and kissed me. "Freya, are you getting too into your role? Why are you smiling at Augustine? Why are you rewarding him?" I held onto Calvin's shoulders, my breathing uneven. "Senior, don't call me Senior. I'm your boyfriend. Call me by my name." I smiled. Calvin kissed me until I was dizzy, his hand gripping my waist as he squeezed. "You've gained a little weight. What do you want to eat today?" I looked at him seriously. "Why, are you so obsessed with eating together?" Calvin pressed his lips together, brushing my hair aside. "Because I don't want you to be like you were in your last life, skin and bones." Freya, that was my worst nightmare. The warm sunlight filtered through the window, casting its glow on the two of us. I could feel the warmth of his body, every bit of it. Finally, I asked the question that had been bothering me for a long time. "How do you have your memories too? Did you also die?" Calvin smiled brightly. "Don't be silly. I lived to a ripe old age." Chapter 14. 2 weeks later, Vanessa stormed into the school's broadcasting station. She cried dramatically in front of Augustine, her tears falling like raindrops. "Augustine, I've liked you for so many years. You can't abandon me for Freya." As she said this, the broadcasting system was still on. Vanessa grabbed onto my clothes, purposely preventing me from turning off the microphone. "Freya, I know you hate me, but don't you fear karma for coming between Augustine and me? Besides, you're already with Calvin, but you're still messing around with Augustine in the broadcasting room. How could you do this to Calvin? Curious students began to gather, and soon enough, the school forum was buzzing with discussions. Freya's interfering? What's going on? Vanessa's lost it. Who jokes about stuff like this? It's a day off. What were Freya and Augustine doing in the broadcasting room? Suspicious. Someone notify Calvin. Calvin personally replied from below, ? I'm at the scene. At the same time, the sliding door at the back of the broadcasting room opened. There stood school staff, members of the student council, and Calvin. Dozens of eyes were now fixed on Vanessa. Some were mocking, some were laughing, others were simply puzzled. The teacher's face darkened. Vanessa, this is too much. Vanessa trembled. But I heard. The teacher cut her off sternly. Tonight we were preparing for the school's anniversary event. What nonsense did you think you heard? Augustine pulled his hand away from Vanessa's grip. His tone cold. Vanessa, I've always seen you as a friend. I didn't expect you to misunderstand. Let's end it here. The bystanders who had watched the entire scene unfold were amused. Freya's dating Calvin. Who cares about Augustine? Whoever wants Augustine can have him. I'm not interested in being anyone's backup. Later, the school sent Vanessa to the counseling office. The doctor diagnosed her with depression and recommended hospitalization for treatment. I helped contact her parents. Depression? Is it that serious? Her parents frowned deeply. I nodded. Speaking sincerely, I had a friend who went from mild depression to severe depression, and eventually, she passed away. I suggest you get her treatment as soon as possible. Despite Vanessa's protests, her parents insisted on sending her to the hospital. As Vanessa was being taken away, she cursed me viciously. Freya, one day you'll meet your end. I smiled and replied, Senior, remember those words, and I hope you think of me when you take your medication. As Vanessa's car drove off into the distance, my smile gradually faded. The palm of my hand was marked from gripping too hard. Calvin handed me a cup of milk tea. I took a sip, the sweetness mixed with the floral taste of jasmine. I said, those medications are really bitter. I take them every day to stay alive. I hope she does the same. Calvin patted my head. Don't worry, she won't escape the suffering you've endured. Chapter 15. I had asked Calvin before what his plans were for the future. With a second chance at life, he could use the information gap to expand his family business. And Calvin was doing just that. In our first year together, Calvin went abroad. Before he left, he lifted me onto a scale. If you lose weight while I'm gone, just wait and see. Near graduation, I secured a spot in the graduate program at our university. This allowed me to balance my studies with my work at Bruno's company. Augustine was convinced that I was assisting Bruno in hopes of marrying into the Sue family. But to his disappointment, he never received the confession he was waiting for. Instead, he was kicked out of the company. Brother, Freya is mine. If I leave, she'll come with me. Bruno raised an eyebrow. Oh, really? At the shareholders' meeting, I sat next to Bruno, dressed elegantly. In just 2 years, I had shed the naivety from my brows and gained a sharpness. Bruno looked at me and smirked sarcastically. Augustine always thought I was grooming a wife for him. Has he no self-awareness? I grinned. He really doesn't. After years of fighting on various fronts, I had become Bruno's most trusted assistant. The room fell silent. No one dared to laugh. I said, Mr. Sue is my boss. Augustine, goodbye forever. This time, Calvin stayed abroad for a full 5 years. The first collaboration between the Ma and Sue families was a project I handled. Because we accurately predicted market risks, the collaboration hit the domestic market like a bombshell in its first year. Both families' stocks soared. In August, the heir of the Ma family returned to the country. As the project's partner, I was in charge of his welcome reception. On the airport's big screen, the day's news was still rolling. In recent years, the number of people suffering from depression has significantly increased. Yesterday, a top student from a university took their own life. They had been suffering from severe depression. Experts urged the public to pay more attention to mental health. I stared at the news, feeling a brief moment of disorientation. In that previous world, the person in the headline would have been me. Freya. Long time no see. Someone stood in front of me. The midday sun streamed through the airport's glass windows. The light scattered like shattered glass. I looked up and met a pair of dark, intense eyes. The 5 years had worn away Calvin's sharpness and rebelliousness. Now, he exuded steadiness. Calvin extended his hand toward me. Let me see if you've lost weight. I slowly smiled and affectionately took his hand. Together, we walked through the kaleidoscope of light toward the airport doors. Time passed. Worlds overlapped. This time, Freya survived her difficult 23rd year, and Calvin, who was supposed to die in the hospital, now stood beside her.